Hello, comrades. Today we're going to have my very, very favorite ANCAP, Simoko, being debunked again, but this time on central planning. First off, he seriously quote-unquote debunks the entire economic system in 1 minute with no sources. Even before he starts the video, even before he starts, I can tell the video is going to be bad. First off, he used the wrong definition of central planning. So let me, as a socialist, libertarian socialist, that doesn't to explain what central planning is. Central planning is mainly a socialist system that is centralized and is mostly focused on allocation of resources instead of the markets, which would exist in socialist society, of course, and goods in general. This would help organize them and distribute them to the people. In general, Simoko's definition would be a command economy, since the government controls the economy completely, which could be socialist due to the fact that command economy, if you're a socialist that believes that the state should exist for an amount of time, then you have a command economy most likely. Unless you're a market socialist, since you would have a market then. A small one at least. And you can have central planning without the government, and people could do it. The CNTFAI had a planned economy, and they're anarcho-communist and anarcho-syndicalist, and Simoko, of course, forgets the fact that central planning has existed under state capitalism. An example is the social democratic late-stage Soviet Union under Gorbachev, which is still centrally planned, even though it wasn't necessarily completely socialist. Not at all. And of course, again, he uses no sources or actual historical examples to back up anything he's saying. And for saying that a centrally planned economy would need to be forced, which is false according to many historical examples. For example, in Chile under Allende, a democratic socialist that came to power by democracy voluntarily, had a centralized economy, and he had socialism instated, of course. He let some aspects of the bourgeoisie still exist. And even while the CIA in America in general paid truckers to strike to cripple their economy and transportation and country due to the fact that the country is very skinny and relies on large transports by truck, especially due to the mountains in the region. Though due to the country's centrally planned economy that was planned with computers, which is called Project Cybersyn, in a centralized economy that was organized by computers. Please educate yourself on Project Cybersyn and many other centralized economies before you claim that central planning needs to use force to work. And while central planning was implemented for the last few months of Allende's government, and while the truckers were on strike, Allende's government was still able to allocate 70% of the resources with their centrally planned economy and Project Cybersyn. And under Augusto Pinochet, the free market neoliberal dictator, Chile was under massive poverty and massive lowering in infrastructure. And it was on a crackdown of all left-wing ideals and slaughtered socialists and banned free press, while Allende had freedom of the press during his government. But let us move on. Hopefully I don't have to go into depth why Pinochet was bad. And then he randomly says that central planning did something to the grain producers in the Soviet Union in 1929. I think he was referencing Holodomor, but Holodomor was in the Ukraine in the USSR. So I'll just skip over that non-cited statement since it's too vague to debunk or even look over into. And he states that you need a market to have a centrally planned economy, which doesn't make sense since centrally planned economies are mostly in socialist countries, and socialist countries don't have markets. But anyway. And it also contradicts itself by ignoring most examples, especially historical examples of a centrally planned economy, like the USSR up until its end, and the Eastern Bloc and anarchist societies as well. And even when the World Revolution happens and we win, hypothetically, of course, according to Simoko's random citation of sorts, I don't know. Central planners wouldn't necessarily exist, since it would be done mostly by computers, since computers could do the job better and spare labor for us. And these central planners, especially due to the fact that these central planners would be massively modernized. While Chile had 1970s computers and were able to still allocate 70% of the resources, while most of the truckers were on strike, paid off strike. Imagine what we could do with modern computers in a larger society. Since computers could do the job better and spare labor for us, and these central planners, quote unquote, would just help allocate resources for the people during the early stage after the revolution due to the war-torn places and such. And in general for the people, though this would only last for a while until the state was dismantled, since true communism could be achieved. Quote unquote, true communism. It's vague a bit. Anyway. And central planners would still most likely use in a case of a disaster, like how it was officially used during Chile during the page strikes. And of course, he has no sources for the central planners or socialist central planners, quote unquote, or whatever, saying something about how communism will do it, and the central planners would have no reason to become greedy and corrupt. And it's managed by computers, and computers would be controlled by the people, and the people control the territory. And if true communism or stateless communism wasn't achieved by then, the government would still be owned by the people. It would be a dictatorship of the proletariat. And it could be also a democratic socialist government, which would be more likely. A democratic socialist government would be more likely to be less corrupt, since it's democratic. Democratic nations and socialism have been shown not to be corrupt compared to many other capitalist nations that do have democracy. And his last point doesn't make sense, since the government controls the country and or the people control the territory. It'd be easier to have a centrally planned economy. Don't let the markets in, since markets make large corporations, which hurts the infrastructure and makes people become wage slaves against, and creates monopolies, which of course exploit the worker. Like always, make sure to slam that like button, please. Also, I like the blank ANCAP flag for 10 seconds at the end. Oof.